Hey, everybody, this is Mike Felbar of the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation coming to you from the Flagler Voice Podcast Studios here in Palm Coast. And we're here at part 2 with Tori. Tori, if you guys haven't listened to it, you got to go back and listen to part 1. She has an incredible story of getting to where she is now. And that's what we're going to be talking today about, how she got to where she is at this point. But her background story, where she's come from, the horrendous things that she's had to go through in her life, to the day of awakening, to where she says, enough is enough, and it's time to go. So everybody, say hi to Tori.
Hi, guys.
So, when we last met and recorded part 1, we talked about where you started in your road to discovery, not recovery. And you said you started using pot, that kind of stuff, from the age of 13 on, and went on and went on and went on. And obviously, your life brought you to the next set of drugs, to the next set of drugs, to a life that was just not a happy life, to a point where you overdosed and had to be rolled out of your school. And then to your start into a variety of rehabs. The last rehab that you spoke about in part 1 was one that seems to have a major effect on your life even today. So let's talk about what that's all about. Let's bring us up to date. Let's bring the hope out.
So I just start where I ended.
Wherever you, yep.
So yeah, Muirwood was kind of the first taste I got of living clean and sober and feeling happy at the same time, which was something I hadn't experienced yet. And all of the counselors and all of the staff there, to this day, I think about them all the time. Whenever I do something, like when I graduated high school and when I started college, the first people I thought about was my therapist and 2 specific counselors that I had there. I just always want them to be proud of me and to know how much they did for me. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have the tools they gave me. But when I left Muirwood, because for a very long time I was still in the mindset that marijuana wasn't a drug, or that marijuana couldn't affect my life the way like pills and powders of that sort would and could and did. So the day that I got out of Muirwood the first time, I actually went and I got high. And then I was just smoking weed again, which I know a lot of people say that weed isn't a gateway drug, and I said that for a very long time, but I really think it depends on the person, and for me it definitely was, because as soon as I started doing that and felt like I was okay, I felt like it would be okay for me to do more and to push it further. So I started getting high again, and then I started with the harder stuff. By the time I was 16, it didn't really matter what it was as long as it made me feel different. And so I started getting into some really shifty situations. Just a terrible way to live, which I know like a lot of addicts say was a terrible way to live, but it really was. And I started going to meetings when I was 13 as well, when I got out of my first rehab. And I had always loved meetings, but I had always felt really guilty because I was in these meetings listening to these people talk, and like these people with like real responsibilities, like kids and jobs and bills and mortgages, talk about how hard it was for them to stay clean. And I was just like a snot-nosed kid that didn't have those real responsibilities yet, sitting at those meetings, and I just always felt very ashamed. But I loved them because I felt very seen, and I knew I wasn't alone, and I knew I wasn't crazy, because there's 20 other adults sitting in this room that not only made it far enough to have a real life, but are able to sit and talk about their problems in a healthy way and work through them and not use. And I still go to meetings. I have a home group, and I have a sponsor who I should talk to more, and a home group I should go to more. But I have always been very blessed that I was able to find meetings, and that meetings were able to find me. But when I was 16, I started going to I went back to Muirwood again. I think it was only a month, maybe, or less than a month before I went back, because I had started using harder stuff that was harder to hide. And my parents were so far on me that they weren't missing anything. So I went back to Muirwood. I think it was like a week or 2 weeks. And I can remember all the staff coming up and like being there to greet me, like my favorite staff members and stuff. And you could tell they were very disappointed, but they were happy that I was alive, happy to see my face. And I was very happy to see theirs. And then I kind of just started all over. Started from step one. When we were at Muirwood, we did work the steps up until step 4 with a recovery counselor. And I had an absolutely lovely, out of this world, amazing recovery counselor that had been through so much of her own, so much chaos and like so much pain. And she was so calm and composed and just full of like peaceful energy. You would have never thought that all the things that she had went through, she went through. She was an amazing, amazing spirit. And I started working the steps with her, like the character defects, and making a list of people that I would need to make an amends to, which I didn't really like doing at first, especially because I was such an angry person for so long. There was definitely a long list of amends, and I blamed other people for what I was doing to myself for so long. Because as true as it was that things weren't easy for me, at a certain point, I was not making it any easier for myself. And I think every addict at some point has to sit and take stock and take responsibility for their life. No one else can do it for you. It's not like you have to do it all by yourself, but it's all in your power. And I had to do that, and it made me look at a lot of things and a lot of things about myself that I didn't like, which was challenging, but it was the perfect environment for me to grow in. It was nothing but supportive and uplifting. Every single person that worked there was just constantly trying to make you better in every single aspect and successfully doing so. So when I turned 17, or I got out the week before I turned 17, I can't quite remember. I think I got out like the week or a couple weeks before I turned 17, the last time that I was in Muirwood. And I had a very good stay there. The second time they kept me for closer to 90 days because evidently the first time with less days didn't work. And honestly, when I got out, I can't remember much. It's very blurry. I'd gotten into a very not so appealing group of people. And was just doing very grimy things like stealing and lying all the time. One of my favorite things about being clean is not having to lie about anything and just being able to be authentic and not feel ashamed or guilty for who I am or what I'm doing. I say it all the time to my dad. Like, it's like sounds so small, but not having to lie, it just changed so much about how I feel about myself and how I feel about the world. But life was very messy for a little bit. I ended up dropping out of school. And I had no intention of ever going back. I didn't think I was going to live to 18, and I did not think I was going to get a diploma. And a lot of other people in my life and in my family didn't think I was going to live to 18 either. They wanted me to. I just don't think it seemed very possible with the way that I was living. So I dropped out of high school, kind of dropped out of life. And then I had run away from home and was living in a U-Haul for a little bit with another addict friend of mine. And then I was only there for a little bit. Things took a turn for the worse, and all my stuff got robbed, and I was walking around with no shoes, getting picked up by friends, wearing the same pair of sweatpants for a week. It was terrible. And then one morning, very, very early in the morning, I was sitting outside a gas station waiting for one of my friends to pick me up, and a copper had stopped by and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And for the life of me, I don't know why, but I responded so aggressively. I mean, I was withdrawing because I hadn't used since the night before. I was, yeah, withdrawing from all of the substances I was on. And I was just very upset and very temperamental. And so I went off on him, and he ended up cuffing me. And I was a runaway. So he had taken me to one of the behavioral health psych wards in Miami. And my parents were in North Carolina at the time, so they couldn't be there as soon as they wanted to be. So my aunt ended up coming and visiting me. I mean, it was terrible. I was in shambles. I was disheveled. I looked disheveled. I felt disheveled. That was probably one of my like real rock bottoms that I'd hit, that like I was able to say I don't want to live like this, you know, as stereotypical as it sounds. And I knew that I didn't have to live like that because I had been shown a better way of life before. And I can remember my aunt sitting down with me and just rubbing my hair during visiting hours, and she had said to me that when she sits with me, she sees me years in the future as a much happier person with a much happier life. And I can remember exactly what she said. She sees me with a bright light radiating out of me, and I'm in front of a group of other kids and other people that have pain in them, and I'm shining my light on them, and I'm sharing my story, and I'm sharing my hope, and I'm helping these people know that they can get out of whatever it is that they're in. And I'll never forget her saying that, because I love sharing my story and sharing my hope, and I love being able to help, even if it's just a little bit, because I can remember when I was going through everything I went through, the littlest thing, the smallest thing, a stranger smiling at me, a person telling me they hope I have a good day, a person telling me that they hope that I feel better, whatever it was, so small and so simple, went so far with me being seen in the world and feeling like I was supposed to be here. And I'll never forget her saying all that stuff to me.
Well, obviously, she was right, because you are a bright light now, okay? And there might have been a dimmer switch in between for a little bit, but now we got it turned up high. So she was 100% right.
So that psych ward had transferred me straight to my last rehab that I went to, Ambrosia. The people at Ambrosia, it was kind of like the people at Muirwood. They were just there for you. They always went the extra mile. They went farther than they had to in their job description to make sure that you were okay and to make sure that you felt cared for and that you felt like you were in the right environment. There was a teacher there who would pray over me and pray with me and pray for me. And he was very much strong in his faith, and he was trying to get me to be strong in mine, even if it wasn't God or Jesus. He just wanted me to believe in something. And I'll never forget him. He was amazing. I'm a very big reader, and in rehabs was when I read the most, because what else are you going to do? So I was just reading all the time. So he would make sure that we would go to the library a few times a week so that I could pick up whatever books I wanted or needed. And he was just amazing. I loved him. And the therapist that I had when I got there, like, quit the week I got there, and everyone said it was because of me, because I can be very defiant and I can be very argumentative. And I was just being very argumentative. And then, like, the next day after me and her got into a big argument, she, like, never came back. I had a couple of therapists while I was there, but ended up doing the job. I had one of the, like, I don't know if she was a manager, but she, like, ran the girls' unit on the floor. And her name was Jen, and she was, like, my fairy godmother. I had another friend that had overdosed and passed away while I was there, and I remember it just sent me for a spiral. And Jen had had a person in her life that she had lost, and I remember they were going to send me to juvie that was court ordered. Ambrosia was court ordered. I went to court and everything because I was going to be 18 when I was in there. And I had to follow the program rules or I was going to go to juvie for much longer than I would have been in there. And at a certain point, I just stopped following the program rules. I stopped going to group. I stopped caring. I felt like giving up. I felt like no matter how much I tried, it was just going to be too hard. And I remember one night, Jen sat me down outside in the little backyard and told me about a person that she had lost before. And really opened up to me, and I was able to open up to her, and it made me feel so much less alone and so much more hopeful. Because here's Jen, this woman that I genuinely admire and like would love to like gain some of her attributes and have some of her traits and carry myself the way she does. And she's seen the pain that I'm going through, and she's been through it, and she was able to be where she is today. And after that, I started wearing the uniform. I started getting up on time for school. I was at all the groups, and I started really participating, and I liked it. I liked participating. I liked being an active member of society, an active member of the groups. I liked it. It felt good. I felt like I belonged. Doing those things and showing up for myself made me know that I belonged. And so I got out of Ambrosia, I think it was just like a few days before my birthday, my 18th birthday. They let me out a few days early, I believe. I didn't have to go to juvie. And it was a very, very tough road, all the rehabs. But I always came out better on the other end for them and with more tools to help myself for all the things that I have to do in my more adult life now. So when I got out of Ambrosia, it's a little fuzzy, but I went back home, stayed clean for a little bit, and then I started doing what a lot of addicts do, and they like, okay, well, I can do it at the party, and I can take it at the concert, and then I just won't do it the rest of the week. I started doing that bargaining, and of course that didn't work. It wasn't like as terrible as it was before, but I knew that I was an addict, and I knew that every decision I made either brought me one step closer or farther from using the way I used to again. And using at a party was definitely just bringing me closer to using as terribly as I was again. And so I didn't like it, and I felt really guilty because I had done so much, and my parents had done so much for me. But that was the bargaining. When you're an addict, you try to see if you can make it work in certain ways because you don't want to give up that thing that you're addicted to. So I did that for a little bit. And then a little bit over a year ago, 17, 18, yeah, like a year and some months ago, I was diagnosed with leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I wasn't using drugs. I was doing that thing where I only used at concerts. And then I was diagnosed with the cancer. I'd gone into the hospital, and they told me I had to stay in that room because I was immunocompromised. I had to stay in that room for 30 days was the verbiage they used. And I started freaking out, banging on the walls. I said, it's like rehab. They're trying to lock me up like I'm in rehab. Like, I think I was like in shock. It hadn't set in that I had cancer, and it was bad. It was really bad. They said that if I would have waited a few more weeks, that it could have killed me. It would have killed me. And I was very immunocompromised, and I was going to sign myself out. I said, I can't do this. It feels like I'm in rehab. It feels like I'm in the psych ward. I can't do this. I can't hit my vape. I can't go out to eat. Like, you're kidding me. This is rehab. I was up in arms. The security guards had to come in and tell me to be quiet because there were other patients on the floor, and I like need to stop banging on the walls. And I was like, but what about me? Like, okay. And my sponsor ended up driving to Jacksonville because I was getting treated at Mayo Clinic, and she drove from Palm Coast to Jacksonville to tell me that I needed to stop being a dumbass and I needed to stay in treatment or I was gonna die. And she visited me quite a few times, and my parents say it a lot and I say it a lot. We owe me being alive to my sponsor because I was ready to sign myself out, which like is so stupid in hindsight, but I felt like I was in rehab again, and it just felt terrible. And she came for Easter and she made me an Easter basket, and she would come and just sit there with me and talk about nothing because she knew that I needed someone to be there with me. And I never really thought about using drugs when I was going through the chemo and everything, as heavy as I was. Partly probably because it would have killed me. My body was so weak. Everything that they were putting in me and everything. And then I had to go on steroids for a very long time, which did not help the anger that I was feeling. And yeah, I didn't use, I was smoking, which didn't help either, but I didn't use any pills or powders. And then I started going into remission. 11 months ago, I was put into a remission. I was going to need a bone marrow transplant because the cancer that I have has a high likely statistic of coming back. And if it comes back, the treatment that they use wouldn't be able to knock it out. So they wanted me to get a bone marrow transplant. I didn't really want to do a bone marrow transplant at all because it would have just made life a lot harder for a lot longer. And so I was like, no, I want to see if the chemo and everything will keep it out. And so far it has, which wasn't extremely likely. So I'm very grateful for that. But after that, when I was able to leave the hospital, I got really into my meetings, and I was going every week to my home group, and I was going out with my sponsor a lot and going to all of the like NA events, which I loved, which is why I say I really need to go more because they made me feel amazing. And it's so good to be with family like that, you know, your recovery family that knows exactly where you were and wouldn't ever judge you for anything because they've done it or they've done worse. And they know who you are now. You know, they don't see the drug addict or the decisions you made or the actions that you had that affected you or other people. They see all the work you've put in and how hard you fight to stay clean. But I was still very depressed and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to stay clean. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to do anything. But while I was going through treatment, I re-enrolled in school, and I was able to get my diploma a few months ago, 2 months ago, not very long ago at all. But I was doing schoolwork while I was there. I had a lot of credits to make up for, and I was able to do all of that when I was going through treatment. And I was able to get my diploma, and then honestly, up until like 3 or 4 months ago, when I finally quit smoking weed, I wasn't very happy still. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that I was still smoking because I was still constantly in like a haze. My tolerance was so high, it's not like I felt it anymore, but I wasn't all there. And I wasn't able to experience all the good things that were happening because I wasn't all there. And I wasn't very conscious. And I couldn't remember the morning. If it was the afternoon, I couldn't remember what happened that morning. And that's just a terrible way to live. And honestly, once I stopped smoking, I became a lot more productive and a lot more content with my life and with myself. I stopped lying completely. I journal every day now, and one of the things that I always journal about is how I didn't have to lie at all today. Because it was just such like a guilty feeling of lying all the time. Even if it was you had to tell one lie, to cover up that one lie, I would have to tell 10 more. And I got my diploma, I enrolled in college, I'm majoring in history, and I'm taking a general psychology class right now that I love. And I started, for the first time, I made friends, for the first time since elementary school. I made friends with no drugs involved, and I have a friend that, like, she was the first friend I made up here that wasn't in recovery, and she completely redefined friendship for me. Not having to use or not having the activity being getting high or getting drugs. I had no idea what it was like to have friends that wasn't surrounded around drugs or the connection of you give me this and I'll give you that. And I remember telling my therapist, I was like, I can't tell if I don't want to have friends or if I just don't know what it's supposed to feel like. She was like, you just don't know what it's supposed to feel like. So I gained that, and I'm very happy that I was able to gain that. And were you going to say something?
No, I'm enthralled with your story. You had mentioned, I think, before we started, or maybe during the first session, that you are now have,
306 days clean.
306 days clean. Before I forget, I would like to invite you to come back when we celebrate that 1 year mark. Because you're going to make it this time. There is no turning back. There is no turning back. I think you've seen now the story that I hear coming from you is that you have seen the benefits. You've seen the benefits. You went most of your life up until this point, from when you left elementary school and moved on. There's not a whole lot there that's worth bragging about. The value there is that we now see that you have turned from there, and you're going to use what you've learned to help other people. And that's the important thing. And you've realized, and you've taken responsibility, which is a key. No one can really get you through recovery if you don't really want it. And when you really want it, the only thing we can all do, and anybody else in the world, in the world of recovery, is help you when we can, but it's still all on your shoulders. And what I see, what I've heard, what I see now, what I'm looking at this very moment, is somebody that has taken that responsibility, taken it, and now your shoulders are not drooping. You're lifted up again. There's pride coming, and helpful, nice pride, not pride that is derogatory, because a lot of times that's the way we think about pride. But you can be very proud of the walk that you've taken and where you are now, and the hope that you're able to give out to the rest of the world that's out there that's still suffering, going through their ups and downs of recovery. And so I would like to have you back to help celebrate that 1 year. So when you get time, I'm gonna put it on your shoulders, your calendar, to be responsible and to get a hold of us like a week or so ahead of time, and we will make a special event to celebrate here at the podcast your 1 year mark. And then we will be here for the future years for you. All right? So everybody, we are getting to a time where it's time to get ready to close here. So do you have anything finally you want to say?
I think all I would want to finally say is that any addict, including myself, deserves better. And as much as we can feel like it's unfair or the world is unfair, we deserve to be fair to ourselves and to at least give ourselves a fighting chance and to try to give ourselves a life that we would be happy living and proud to be living.
Excellent. That's a very powerful close. So everybody, this is Mike again from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, getting ready to sign off today. We have had a great visit with Tori here, and we'll have her back maybe before, but whatever. We're going to have her back at least at our 1 year celebration of sobriety. So thank you. God bless. Have a great day. Flagler Podcast Studio is signing off.